Hello everybody, hello Battletech fans. It's another Silly Whiz thing, and it's Project W Part 2. So I'm going to work out where the webcam is. Yay, 2. Okay, so I kind of outlined Project W last time, saying I wanted to do some global effects. I felt weather was a good thing, kind of tied into some of the board game stuff and the thematic stuff that people wanted to talk about. It might be a little earth weathery with where I've drawn a lot of the inspiration. There may well be things like dust storms and other things and whatever else, and strange gravity and whatever else that you might find on some weird and wonderful alien planets, but it is what it is. And what I will say at the moment is everything is open, everything is fluid, changes can be made, etc, etc. I mean, currently the balance of the cards is there are 18 rares, there are 18 commons, 17 rares and 13 uncommons, and I think I need to balance that a little. How that happens I'm not quite sure at the moment. As I said, I wrote a lot of this about 3 or 4 months ago in a very short space of time, and I haven't really revisited it. And the only reason I'm revisiting it now is to record it and put it out there and see if people want to playtest it. So I thought it would be useful to break things up into various contexts, and the common cards, if we go and use them in the way I was initially thinking, will make up 60% of your drafted, although you can put them together yourself, weather deck. Okay, and therefore they should represent the common types of weather, but also have useful but not overpowering effects. So because they're more common, we're talking minor effects here, whereas uncommon are slightly better or more virulent potentially, or more dangerous. And then the rarer ones obviously don't happen as often, but could be quite different. So all the cards are in the same format. I've used the kind of Commander's Edition-y type background here and the template that I was given. I've kept the Wizards of the Coast bit at the bottom. I could copyright that and put that on if I really wanted. And you can see that there is the Silly Whiz set here on the left hand side. There's the blue S at the bottom for the alignment or the set. Okay, and all the art here, you might be looking at this and thinking, wow, he did all that art in like 2 days. Yes, I did. But it's AI generated art, and I got a computer to do it for me. Otherwise it'd take me forever. So, you know, my Photoshop skills are okay, but there's no way I'd be creating stuff like this. So the first card in the common section is called Calm Before the Storm, and it's just a kind of serenity thing. Here we've got some sort of outpost on a planet somewhere with the sun, no, not the sun, the storm rising in the background, so to speak. And this card basically, it's possibly not as well themed as it could be, but the effect of this card, and remember, this goes on the table, this applies to both players. Okay, it's not you, it's your opponent as well. It says when you would roll a die, instead don't roll 1, roll 3. Okay, and then select one that you resolve. Okay, so if you've got a missile, and it will only work on one missile. If you've got a missile 3 unit, it will work on the first die roll. Okay, so you roll 3 for the first one. Okay, you select 1 to resolve, you select 1 to discard, and 1 to replace your next die roll. Now that could be quite useful for missiles. It could be quite useful for people playing with superior navs and risky combat jumps without the need for a Star Commander. All the other effects like Star Commander reroll and Narc and things like that still take effect. It's just you roll 3 dice and you choose to resolve 2 of them. 1 of them instantly, 1 of them next time, which negates this if it's still in play, obviously, and 1 that you ignore. Okay, And that seems to me reasonably well balanced, because that can affect both players. If you've built your deck without die roll, then okay, fine. But it could also be a vehicle scrap roll. So I think that works reasonably well from both sides. And if you're not using die rolls in there, then obviously you can use our favourite card, Have a Nice Day, or hopefully Have a Nice Day, which you've got 3 of in your weather deck, to just put over the top of it, or you can replace it. Remember that any of the weather cards you can replace on your turn at the end of any of your phases. So you could do it after the untap phase if you really want, and it may well be that that's a good idea to drop that in there, because then you know what your deployments are and where your missions potentially could go. It could be that you're going to utilize one of these effects and then at the end of your missions phase change it because it's going to be too good for your opponent to have, as we might see with some of the others. Okie dokie. Clear Skies is a very, very simple, you can add 1 to any missile die roll. Okay, and that's quite nice because when you look at Narc, it's subtract. Okay, if you look at Missile Spotter, it's subtract. The only card that allows you to add to a die roll for a missile is Targeting Ace. So a 1 becomes a 2. If this is in place, you could potentially move that up to a 3. So that's quite a nice boost for missiles. Okay. Doldrums. Each player scraps a card from their hand and replaces it with a random card from their scrap heap. Obviously, if you scrap a card and then that's the only card in your scrap heap, you get that back if that's very early in the game, so that has no real effect on you. But it could be that your opponent scraps and they choose which card they scrap. So this is kind of a pseudo-random black market, and replaces it with a random card. So the thought here is that you could be asset screwed, you could be unit screwed, and therefore you could replace one of those with something that you've missed out on. And it adds a random element because of what you bring back. You could scrap an assembly and bring an assembly back because it's a random choice. Okay, fine, no detriment really in that respect. You could scrap an assembly and get a tactics, which could be good if you haven't got tactics in play. Or you could scrap an assembly, and it's just assembly is the example obviously, and bring back a unit or a mission which you're short of. So it might give a minor boost. It might be a null state, scrap assembly, get an assembly kind of thing. Therefore I don't see it's going to be a disadvantage unless you've got quite a small hand holding on to those 2 missions that you want to finish the game. So it can twist both ways. So I think that's reasonably well balanced. I think an early Doldrums isn't that bad. I think a late one might be an issue. We'll see. Okay. Next card up in the common list is Early Morning Sun. Each player restocks a card from their hand and replaces it with a selected card from their stockpile. This is kind of there to generate that warm, fuzzy feeling you have in the morning when the sun comes up and everything's lovely. Or if you're like me, you're very blurry and wondering what the hell's going on and you're scrabbling around trying to find things. Basically, it's a free... it's not even a free Melissa Steiner Davian, because she's scrap a card and bring one back. It's a restock, which cycles your hand. That could be good or bad, depending on what you have to restock, and you must restock and must draw a card. So it's a little hand cycle, which could be quite useful, but also quite drastic, depending on what you've got to recycle and when it turns up in the game. And again, the thought here is that this could have a positive or negative effect, possibly not very large, but potentially could be useful. And again, it depends on where it fits into the game. Okay. Next up, we have favourable winds. And I've got to say that this is a card, or the idea for this card is that something that Chester came up with. I'm not saying this is battle armor, by the way. It's very hard to AI generate some of the Battletech stuff because you cannot use any of the names of mechs and other things. You can't say generate me a Victor, whichever version it is, or Zeus 5S and have it beating up a... It doesn't work because it edits that out, because effectively it's copyright. So it's the essence of the image here. And basically Chester's idea was that battle armor is not tied to a unit. It can attack on its own. Therefore, that's quite a good card. I think if you've got a very dedicated battle armor deck, maybe the Dragonfly elemental type stuff, then that's quite good. I think Clan needs a little bit of love, to be honest. And remember that if this does turn up and your opponent's playing that, then yes, it's a great boon for them. But you can always go and replace the weather card the following turn as you wish. So it's not a permanent effect, but it does allow some element of dynamism and strategy throughout the missions phase, depending on your deck. And that was one of the things I wanted to try and promote. If you haven't got any battle armor, it doesn't have any effect. Great. I mean, the only inner spheres of battle armor worth playing, I think Sloth Squad's. Yeah, Sloth Squad is listed at it. The other battle armor is pretty naff. But those clan units can be quite good. So being able to attack on their own, you could see a situation where this could probably end the game potentially. But you know, it's the variety here. It's the change of strategy that I'm trying to promote. If you think it's too powerful, then fine, we'll tweak it. Okay. Ground Frost. This is a very, very British thing. And the idea of the Ground Frost was to kind of simulate those cold, icy, snowy days in winter where nothing works in the morning, or more likely you get up to go to work and you try to start your car and it does not start. So the idea here is that non-resource cards, so all your support resource cards or anything that has the resource keyword is fine, but the other command cards cannot be tapped. So you can't tap an arrow 4 because it's not a resource command. Anything that taps for a resource, tap, gain a resource, fine. You can't use things like arrow 4. You cannot tap any other command card for an effect. So that just kind of nullifies those, or maybe changes your plans slightly. Yes, it would screw an artillery deck quite nicely, but there aren't really any artillery decks. And B, you can replace it, as I said. Have a nice day are ubiquitous, null state, nothing's going on, enjoy, no effects card. And remember, at the moment, your 10 card deck will have 3 of these in. I'm toying with the idea of reducing that to 2 and having the 1 in play go in and out of people's decks, so there could be 3 in there. It might be that you pick up your opponent's version and you could end up with 4 in there. That's quite fun. But still, okay. Haze. This is a card or a weather condition designed to try and promote or break stalemates. So attacking units are 1 speed faster, so all your moderates are now fasts, all your slows are now mediums, all your fasts are still fast because we don't have extra fast, and dash isn't a speed, it's an ability. So it just means that you might be able to push more of your units through because your opponent hasn't got the right number of blockers based on speed. Okay. Headwind is kind of the reverse. Obviously the headwind gets in the way and slows you down, so attacking units are now 1 speed slower. So all your fasts go to moderate, all your moderates go to slow, and all your slows stay as slow, because slow is as slow as it gets, and cannot block unless guarding is the detrimental ability or caveat to that. It's not part of the speed designation. So simple as that. You've got two that kind of work with or against each other. Okay. Midnight Sun, inspired by my trip to Iceland. Okay. This is kind of you know, when everything goes dark and all the sneaky things happen, and then you come up in the morning and all's there. So this kind of represents that, with all cards under construction and deployments are revealed. So one, any card under construction gets revealed. So if it's a unit, people know what you're building. If it's a corridor of fire or one of those nasty subterfuge cards, they get scrapped. They get scrapped at that point. And any deployment you make, regardless of whether it's a spider or a strip mine, is revealed regardless for both players. So people can see what's going on. And that has a bit of an effect on those next few turns until you change it. Okay. Where are we going? We're on moderate to good, aren't we? Nice and simple, straightforward card. Everybody draws a card. Simple as that. Okay. Note that's an additional card to your original draw, because this is a completely separate effect. Even if you activate it in the draw phase, you draw a second card or a third card, depending on when it appears. Okay. You could turn this over on the very first turn before you draw cards, and as the first player, draw two. That could happen. I don't think that's going to have too drastic effect on the board state. Maybe that's the case, but remember, it's a random 1 from 10, and you're probably only going to have at most 3 of these in the 10, so it's a 30% chance of occurring on a random development. So you might say that's overpowered, but it probably only turns up about 5% of the time, or 6% of the time, or something like that. And I don't think that's overpowered. Again, if you don't like it, you think it is, fine, let me know. Also note that turning this card over could actually end the game, because your opponent doesn't have enough cards to draw. So most of the time, you think about that portion between turns 2 and the one before the penultimate one in the game, this is potentially a beneficial card to everybody. Just in those 1 or 2 niche situations, it might actually cause you to be in a bit of a pickle. Okay. Okay. Overcast. The idea here being that you can't see everything and whatever else. Maybe it'd be better as a fog card, I'm not quite sure. Very simply, do not roll a die when a vehicle is damaged. So this is the scrapping roll, the 5 to 6 roll, and the idea here is that basically you don't see them properly, which is kind of circumventing that. Obviously, if you're not playing vehicles, then that doesn't work. If you think about this, then that means it's only really beneficial to inner sphere players, which is fine. But then if we go back to our, where are we, favourable wins, it's highly likely that this is a clan card. It's highly likely that this is an inner sphere card. So they've kind of got counterpoints. Sea Mist comes from, or this was inspired by my visit to Agadir in Morocco, where it's a lovely place right on the Atlantic Ocean, but you do get the sea mist in the morning and it looks a bit dull and whatever else. But the idea being that the sea mist means that you can't see what's coming in from a watery or ocean-based attack, and therefore all the units there that have long range gain +1 long range, or in fact all units gain +1 long range. Maybe it should be attacking units, I'm not sure. I don't think that defending having long range makes a difference, so that's why I kept the statement a blanket. because you would defend with units with long range. You're not going to use that ability, but you might use it the following turn when you retaliate on your opponent. So that's why I just said all units have got long range 1, and it's +1. So your awesome with long range 2 could potentially, okay, yeah, that does depend on which awesome it is, but anyone with +2 then gets long range 3, for example. Your Thunderhawk would, yes, the Thunderhawk gets Thunderhawk, yes, Thunderhawk 3 PPCs, not PPCs, Gauss rifles, with long range 3 would actually get long range 4. Would be quite nice. But again, it might change the state of the game. It might allow you to do enough punch through damage, long range damage to the target, to your opponent's stockpile, to allow you to complete or finish the game. Early on, it probably isn't going to have much of an effect unless you're attacking a resource, which could work. So I see that as quite a nice card. I always like that image. Stormfront, each player scraps 2 cards from their hand. Simple as that. You get to choose what they are. It kind of is balanced in a way. I suspect it hurts non-swarm players more than swarm players. And if you're playing with the hidden reserves type aspect where you're replenishing your hand, it probably hurts that more. But again, it depends on what you scrap and what you've got too much of. I mean, if it's 2 resources that you're not going to use because it's turn 8 and you've got 7 resources on the table and you've got half a hand of assembly and tactics, and you can just chuck them. Your opponent might be there with a handful of units or even missions, and they've got to discard 2. So I think that the timing here is probably more important to how well this card affects the state of the game. But again, it's each player, so I consider it to be reasonably well balanced. Tailwind. The jump ability is now jump +2 initiative, -1 damage. So when you use jump, you gain an additional initiative, because jump is normally +1, -1 damage. So you get a bit of extra boost from it, and that kind of fits in with the Tailwind theme and propels you forward, which means you can play 2 mission cards. So reasonably innocuous, I think, but potentially useful on occasion. Tempest. Units using the jump ability are depleted at the end of the mission. This is to basically represent the Stormfront interfering with the flying of the unit. Units using, so it doesn't matter if you just have jump ability, it's if you actually use it, and if you do use it, that unit gets depleted. Again, if you haven't got any jump units, or your units don't use jump, or you elect not to use it, you're fine. Okay. Thor, each player restocks 2. No draw, just restocks 2. So this basically gives you 2 more life in your stockpile at the detriment of losing 2 cards from your hand. That's both players, and you must restock 2 in both cases. And as you can see going through this, most of this is balanced on both sides. You know, restock 2, add 1, whatever else, etc. And then finally, updraft. Units using the jump ability gain +2 attack. Now, what you're going to remember is that if you use jump, it's +1 initiative, -1 attack. So this effectively turns it into +1 initiative, +1 attack, because you've got to use the jump ability, which takes you down by 1 to add 2. So it's just a bonus for jump units, basically. And again, you have to use the ability. But it might be that +1 on all your jump units is quite useful, especially if you're playing a jumpy deck, you know, Jump Wolf or something like that, or Jump Viper. I've got to do Jump Viper. Remind me to do Jump Viper. Put that out there. But that could be quite useful in that respect. I know it's a kind of Highlander, there can be one only type image. The images I originally did were a lot larger than that, and there's a load of volcanic stuff down here and he's jumping over that, but there you go. So that's a quick run through of the common weather cards. Okay, if you've got any comments and feedback, then post it on Facebook, post it on YouTube. I'm not twitching these, so don't post it on Twitch because it won't be there. But if there's any comments about any of these abilities, anything you think is too strong, that's fine. If you think that some of it needs a bit of a spicing up, then fine, let me know. And if you've got any suggestions of weather conditions or abilities or things that you would like to see applied across the board, remember this is board state for everybody. This is not just you, it's for both players. Then please say, let me know, give me a shout. Right, on to the next one. Catch you soon.